Well, I'm going to agree with the mayor on a couple of points. And the biggest point is an abatement program that the town could start for very little money, and then they could use the public works and the parks and stuff like that to help the landowners in town, or the people, their houses, to go and inspect. If I say I got too many mosquitoes, I can call and I have a resource. And another resource is that besides the town, as well, county does that too. And so we could maybe piggyback with Well County to get some help. But it all starts with the personal, what are you personally willing to do that? And for spraying on mosquitoes, it is a big cost because the town doesn't have the equipment. So we usually have had to hire that out. And so you have to think of it that way. But I think if the citizens in the town worked on a good abatement program and showed some personal responsibility, then we would be physically responsible for not for using our dollars and our people and our resources to the best to our ability. Because we have a good kid there with the building inspections, and I see somebody from Public Works back there. They can get together with them, and they have an idea, and then they can bring their crew out and say, do this and this and this.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Jim Anthony?
I don't know about this mosquito problem now. I come at one time when I lived in California, we had a mosquito abatement program. It wasn't so much mosquitoes, we had this Mediterranean fruit fly out there that we sprayed with helicopters almost every night out there. And if your car was out, you were in trouble because it had a spray on it that you had to scrub it off. We told them when they do it, it was between midnight and 3 a.m. As far as here with the mosquitoes, I live on the east side. I've got 2 holding ponds and a ditch over there. And believe me, I get mosquitoes that will carry you off. The problem is, those are private lands. And like I've heard here before, you have to work with the people. Well, county won't spray unless it's absolutely necessary. They haven't done it for a couple of years because the West Nile has gone down. If something like that comes up, then the town needs to look at it. See if we have funds for it. Can we get funds from any place else? Because we'll have to contract it out because we do not have the resources of Public Works or trained people to do it with. So that adds to the cost. So I like to sit out on my front porch too. I got a nice beautiful view of the river out there. But I also got the mosquitoes about September and August. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to a question specifically for the 2 mayoral candidates. We'll let Milt start alternating back and forth there. Leslie Bangert, our publisher, had said prior to this that this is supposed to be about issues, not personalities, no personal attacks. I think knowing both of these candidates as well as I do, I don't have any doubt that that will not be a problem with this question. Question is, for both of you, what do you consider the most important differences between you and your fellow candidate for mayor? And we'll begin with Bill.
Well, I'll look at it more from my skill set, my background, my experience, from the private sector as well as the public sector. Budgetary standpoint, fiscal responsibility, analysis skills. That's something that I possess. That it's a discipline that I have. I also think that I have very good, besides the analytical skills, how you make decisions, or at least how I make decisions, is that I try to make sure I have the data, not just data from this source, information from this source. I try to expand that more, try to process it, have an output, go back and say, monitor that. How do I improve that before I make any kind of decisions here. Try to do a lot more planning at that end of it. That's not to say that the mayor doesn't. I'm just saying that's how I work before I make some decisions. And that's a constant process. It's not do it, done, forget about it. You've got to keep monitoring that until it's done to completion. I'm a doer. That's how I accomplish projects.
Thank you. Jamie?
I think Milt really said the difference. Milt is, his skill is definitely, and a very good skill, of analyzing and going through all the steps. I consider myself, I do that, but I consider myself a much more of a people person than an analytical person. And I try very hard to listen and to respond to them. And yes, I have to know what the issue is about and make a decision, but it is based less on analyzing it with the like a CPA might, and I very definitely laud his abilities to do that. But I consider myself just a probably a softer, if you can use that word, and a people person. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. No, they both got a chance to answer the question.
Okay. This is for all the candidates. It just mentions kind of a topic here, and so I'm going to try and pose a question. Both Johnstown and Milliken have their own volunteer fire departments, fire districts. Right now we have one chief. What is your opinion on the Johnstown and Milliken fire districts merging? And we'll start with Lois.
Well, since I am a long-time Milliken, of course, I still like for us to have our own, what do I want to say, identity. You know, I'm just that. But I guess, you know, I have not looked into it. I can't say that I really know all about it. But maybe that's the best. I don't know. You know, we still pay into this one here, and but I guess we'll just have to see. But again, the bottom line is, I don't want to lose our identity. You know, we could join in with all towns around, and we could be nothing. I just want us to be Milliken. That's.
Thanks.
Well, I would have to agree with Lois. I like the idea of maintaining our own independence as a town. I think that a lot of the times when we partner with other communities, we often don't get the same services or that say the other communities, like I would say Parks and Recreation would be, Park and Recreation District would be a good example. And I think a lot goes to our neighboring communities, but we really don't retain much, and I don't know how much we would actually save by sharing one fire chief and consolidating the departments. I haven't actually seen those numbers, and typically once somebody has once say an administrator or fire chief has more staff and personnel, their salaries tend to go up anyway. So, you know, I think keeping Milliken its own independent entity is a good idea.
Thanks, Jordan. Linda?
I strongly believe that Milliken should have its own identity. I understand that Ron is the chief for both places, and it's due to these economic times. I'm very proud of our fire department. I think we have a wonderful new facility. So as time evolves, as the economy improves, I would like to see Ron come back here and Johnstown get their own fire chief. But I really believe Milliken should have their own identity.
Thanks. Mill?
I agree with the identity issue. I would also point out that I believe there's good coordination that can be accomplished, whether it's an individual head of it or a head that's actually oversees both departments. And I think that's part of the whole issue here, is that is the issue losing identity, or what's the effective use of a chief? And I guess part of it is in selecting that person, but have an understanding. If you're going to try to merge, consolidate, is it better to have this entity with these dollars allocated, this entity with these dollars allocated? Because generally speaking, in a collaborative effort, unless you have a lot of bureaucratic issues, you're much more efficient at it. If you've got 2 sites or 3 sites, we've got 2 right now here in Milliken and the other one over in southwest Greeley area. Covers a wide range, and that's I don't know how many of you can identify with that over there. I think it's more of how do we consolidate some services. One of them has been ambulance issues. Our ambulance actually comes from Windsor, and so the time span is 20-some minutes before it even gets here. Is that something that we can share with both towns? I think you look at stuff like that as opposed to just strictly maybe just the issue of just the fire chief. How can we both benefit from some of those collaborative services?
Okay, thanks. Janie?
I have been the board's representative at the fire district meetings, and that's been a big eye-opener for me. Chief Bateman has done quite a good job to be the chief for both places, both communities. We're very close. We often have, when we're on a call, it's no problem at all that Johnstown helps us, and vice versa. I think we tend to believe that Johnstown is bigger, so it must have the better group, and that's not been so. I think Chief Bateman has really helped them in their training and bringing them up to great standards, and so that's been a plus. I also think, though, that the ambulance service would be wonderful to have it here. We are out of the loop here a little bit, and they're working on that, by the way, and so we're hoping something like that can come to fruition. Whether they should join, I'm not sure. I think we like our identity, and we lose it in other ways, and we don't want to lose it there. But it is good to work together. They do cooperate very well together, which is great to see. When we had the fire up at Mad Russian, our group was somewhere else, and so Johnstown was the first one on site, I believe. And so there is good cooperation right now, but probably want to keep our identity.